Boy, are we in the last days. Mike from around the world is with us tonight. Mike?
Pastor Paul.
Yeah, how you doing, Mike?
God bless you.
God bless you, really, brother, and thank you for coming on tonight. You've got to be the most busiest man in the world. Am I right?
Well,
See?
somewhere out there, we're some of the busiest,
I mean,
maybe.
you hesitated. That means you know you are one of the most busiest people on the planet. I love that. All right, Mike. It's an honor to have you tonight, and we got a lot to talk about. And let's start with, if we can, this CME, this cannibal CME that's headed toward the Earth. That's going to hit us by, they say, about noon tomorrow. People are already telling me they're feeling pain. There are a lot of pain already. Is it already starting?
Well, this whole process began a few days ago, and so yeah, I would say yeah, they're feeling it because it will change pressure and all sorts of things. So the body is very sensitive to that, especially women. Women have a big issue with that. And also, people have ear issues with solar flares, which will often translate to all sorts of issues like sinus issues, teeth issues, you name it. But they'll have it stiffness of joints and bones, and that's an expected, unfortunate side effect of so many changes in our Earth here, in the Earth from the sun. But the sun is just getting warmed up.
And that's because of Planet X, Mike. I mean the binary system. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, we have some. Yeah, we have some massive external effects inbound actually, and this is the first of a few things. And,
Okay, now that was I love it. You're good at this. Inbound, actually, what's that mean? I mean, we got some stuff coming inbound.
Yeah, we have. We're going to have a very different type of few months coming up, actually, as forces change, planets alter. We're going to feel it, and the sun is the number one component in our solar system that will actually indicate that these changes are massive.
So the sun is already telling us. And I mean, it's been exploding. I mean, we had this X class. It was almost an X class. It was real close. And they call it a cannibal CME. And they say it's going to come in so fast it's going to gobble up a couple CMEs ahead of it. And going to
That's why they call it that, yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to smack us about noonish or so tomorrow. So what do you anticipate that will do to satellites or radio waves, or what do you think?
I think this one will be common. In other words, we're going to have the satellite issues and sporadic outages of radio waves and things of that nature, some auroras possibly. But because it's still on a small scale, I don't perceive it doing a whole lot. But I tell you what, it's going to be a good gauge for some of the ones that'll be far worse than that. This is a small happening in comparison to what we could face, or the sheer number of solar events that we will encounter over time. This would be a good indicator of what many of them will do, or bigger ones will do, because we're going to have to entertain that. For a long time, Pastor Paul, we just, a lot of people have been talking about post effect of what things have done. I can assure you, a time is coming when somebody says solar flare, it's going to cause people's hearts to skip beats, because we're going to be well acquainted with the damage the sun can actually do to the Earth. We've been very fortunate. God knows.
That's in the Bible. It talks about these. The sun will cause these great heat, and will cause people to gnaw their tongues for pain and blaspheme God over the. Like, it must be, apparently it isn't just like a heat over the whole planet, but it's zing, zing. I mean, am I right about that? So like microwavable strikes or something?
Well, we're going to have some massive forces are involved. It's not the first time, right? It's not the first time. I believe it was the 1600s there were some events like that. Back in the 1300s, there were some events like that. So it's not the first time, but these will be the worst ever encountered, right? And because we have a built-up civilization, they're going to cause some extreme damage. We didn't have this stuff, back in the 1300s that we know of, not like this. And so it's going to make for some very massive inconveniences, right? We're going to have to entertain many more fires than normal. Um, Conditions of Earth are going to alter. Hardships will ensue. And again, it won't be the first time. It's not going to be the first time, but this will work up to a crescendo of something that the Earth has never undergone before. Right, we're very close to that, and again, for a long time we've been talking about it. People have speculated about it. The days of speculation, the days of sideline, commentary, that's going to be over. And I'm telling you now, people are going to, when they endure some of what's happening, and they begin to realize worse things are coming. Right, it's going to be heartbreaking to a lot of people. But I caution everybody, especially those who belong to Christ. It sounds bad, but I want everybody to think about something. We're going to be inconvenienced from our comforts. That is not torment. That is not torment, right? That's just simple inconveniences. The Lord made us adaptable on this planet, but we have comforted ourselves with just about everything. And if we lose those comforts, we often think the world has ended. Well, that's just not the case. That doesn't mean the world has ended. Sure, it's going to be some very challenging times, but with the Lord, with a sober mindset, people will adapt. God's people will, but it will get much, much worse. We're not gonna. I don't think any of us who really belong to Christ are going to be here for the infinite, horrible things. Not that, but this time that's coming upon us is a very real time, and people are going to have some massive inconveniences. So, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be compromised in a situation like that, right? We shouldn't. So, if people want to be sober, get really prepared, then be prepared to have loss, but to still continue on. Be prepared for that.
Okay, so we've been looking at this, and tonight we're going to ask you a question. I know in the webinar you did a great job. You gave us about a 15-minute update on Planet X that you can't share on a YouTube video.
Right. It's better left on that.
Let's leave it over there. Okay, yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
leave. And that's another
Yeah.
reason, folks, to get your ticket, because Mike would love to share it with you right here, but he knows we better leave it over there. But Mike, can you help us understand? Let me ask you this question: will Planet X, or this binary system, will it affect Apophis coming in 2029?
It's going to affect. It will affect everything. But let me go through a small scenario. If you
Okay,
had marbles, right? If you had a bunch of marbles or pool balls on a pool table, right? And you barely take the cue ball and hit it on the rest of the balls, right? You get this slow movement, right? Everything bumps into everything, right? Everything is scattered,
right.
but not really too far, but everything is scattered. But if you take a very fast object, right, and you hit it, possibly maybe cant it to the right a little bit, you can actually dislodge everything on the right side of that, of your balls there, right? When they're in that triangle, you can hit the right side. Nothing on the left moves, and everything on the right is dislodged, right? Have you ever done that on a pool table?
Yeah, I have. Yes.
Okay, our Kuiper belt, right? It starts out. It is small fragmentation. Then it gets into these larger objects, but all of a sudden, abruptly, it is cut off. It's sheared off. Right? That's impossible. What type of formation is that? That's impossible. So what it means is something fast. I mean, something extremely fast came through there, right? And
Yeah.
sheared off that outer band of the Kuiper belt. Now, what does that mean, though? It means when you're in a binary system and you have planets rotating around a sun, right? That sun is moving, yes, but you have these planets or objects of that sun orbiting. And when they orbit and it comes into in that area of convergence with another solar system, then you're looking at speeds that are phenomenal, right? So an object of this second sun, one of the objects rotating around the second sun, more than likely struck our Kuiper belt so fast, right, as to shear it off but leave everything else untouched. There's some extra evidence of that. It's not been discussed yet, right? Because if you think it's just the Kuiper belt, that's wrong. It's incomplete. In fact, a lot of things are incomplete when you get out that far. But they know for a fact some of the exotic particles and things that they have observed do not come from this solar system. They don't come from here. In fact, many of the particles that are trapped in or around the Kuiper belt, which is why they seek so hard to study any objects dislodged from the Kuiper belt that will come inwardly. Some of the material does not match anything found in our solar system, which means we had some sort of external object that came through very fast enough to dislodge the outer bands, right, that outer portion of the Kuiper belt, and just whiz right out. That happens. That's been observed in binary systems, right? Our sun's activity is another telltale sign. You know, the sun has its seasons, but some of the phenomena being experienced in the sun that they're not talking about, for example, the color of the sun is way different than what it used to be, right? It's not because of the atmosphere. You can take a high altitude flight and it's a notable color difference of the sun, right? Notable color difference. So they won't discuss that for some reason, but all of us should know that. Also, its intensity is different, right? It prickles your skin when the sun hits your skin when you're outside. There was a time when anybody could walk in the sun. You could be in the desert and it would not do your skin that way. We have increased infrared emissions from the sun. The chemistry of the sun is altering. They know this through SOHO, for example, some of the optics that they have out there. Did you know that one of those devices has 24 lenses, but they only let people observe just a few of those lenses, right? So nobody
Really?
on the internet can observe they can observe everything. They always do that. Most of these devices in space have massive capabilities. They let people on the internet access some of those capabilities enough to satisfy them, and they never ask any more questions, right? But they're observing quite a bit. There's a lens that shows the sun as a three-dimensional solid image full of dots, right? Full of moving dots. It's a three-dimensional image. They do this for chemical analysis and density observations, along with some of the other filters. But the chemistry of the sun is changing. So we did discuss something in the webinar that's, that we're looking forward to, and that's one of the reasons why. And it's not something we're not talking about. We're not talking about in the distant future. And by that, I mean a year off. We're not talking about another year. It's not what we're talking about. So we're talking about some immediate alterations in how we live our life here on Earth due from the sun. And this is an external influence. Also, at the same time, the sun is changing. So is Jupiter.
Yeah. Tell us
Jupiter's
about
also
that.
changing.
Tell us
And
about
as
that.
Jupiter changes, Saturn is also. Right? So we have two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, that are starting to wake up again. I'll put it that way. They're waking up again, right? There was a time when Saturn could be observed in detail, great detail from Earth. That time is coming back again. Is coming back again, right? Jupiter.
And you
Jupiter is
wait,
probably not what,
you just said Saturn is coming back again.
it's coming back
What
again.
do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean, Mike?
Well, if people can interpret some of the stories, some of the ancient stories of the pantheon, the ancient deities, in a lot of cases they were talking about the planets, right? Those were actually celestial observations, not actually some of those. In some cases, they were not talking about demonic entities. These were direct celestial observations, and Saturn has some mysterious phenomena happening with it right now. And so they're not sharing some of, nobody can share some of what's happening to Saturn right now, but when they do share it, right, every scientist is going to pop on it and wonder what phenomenon is this, because it's just not talked about, it's not observed, it sounds spooky at best. But the whatever Saturn was in the past is returning to, right? Whatever Jupiter was in the past, it's returning to. And they were by no means benign, right? These things were active and they affected Earth in massive ways. Massive ways. There was a time when everybody on the face of the planet was terrified of Saturn. Every single civilization, it seems, at a specific time, had a horrible story of Saturn, and they were not connected civilizations, which means everybody experienced the same thing, right? Part of that looks like they described plasma discharges from Saturn directly to Earth momentarily, probably for a few months, and then it was over with, right? So what would cause such a disruption in planetary orbits like that? Right. Well, we're about to find out, because if Earth is not going to keep its orbit, they've known for a long time that the orbit of Earth has changed at least 4 times. Right. It's not always been in the orbit it's in.
What?
They also know that the spin of the Earth not too long ago was different than it is now, which totally confuses where people think things were back in the past. See how if you don't tell all the facts, you can get history totally wrong. And this is what they do this on purpose, so they can continue to be in the know, and everybody else is, or is in the ignorant realm or something like that. But most people with discernment, they know for a fact that some of the things that they have found out, they don't match. Something is missing. They know something is missing, right? They try hard to convince themselves that no, it's not missing. This is the way it is. But there's something that eats away at every single person, especially those who are called by Christ, that something is missing in history. There are things that are not right in historical times, and somebody's not telling something. All that stuff is returning, right? All of it will happen again. We will undergo it. We will experience it. And at that time, there will be no mysteries. Unfortunately, there will be fear, right? But there'll be no mysteries.
Amen. All right, Mike, let's move into great information. And guys, if you want the rest of the story, the big stuff, you'll need to go and get the ticket tonight for tomorrow. It starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. The webinar is called Invasion America. Mike, let me ask you a question. And talk about invasion.
Yes,
let's shift gears a minute. I have reports that Venezuela has invaded, or at least some of the rebels have invaded Guyana. Brazil knew this was coming. They started moving troops. What can you indulge us with some information about what might be going on now in South America?
Okay. Well, oh boy,
I know
it's a lot. It's a lot going on down there. Pastor Paul, you just did the same thing I did in a briefing one time.
What's that? What did I just do?
You did the exact same thing. Well, South America is weird, right?
Yeah.
And right when I was in Trinidad, the geology of South America and another place in Africa, I swapped. You did the same thing I just did. I did a while back. Anyway, there are assets in Venezuela.
Okay.
Assets. Nobody's going to talk about that too much. It's kind of like how they're doing Putin right now, right? America gives Putin money, and so they have, or not Putin, but they give Zelensky money, and so they have propaganda to support everything Zelensky and to degrade Putin, right? Because they gave Zelensky money. This is part of the SOP, standard operating procedure. And so Venezuela, South America, period, has assets, American assets there, right? There are 2 tech hubs there, but they remove, everybody else has been essentially disbanded. It is a place that is not very friendly. Certain places are very difficult, very rough. Nobody's going down in certain places to investigate because they won't come back. And so that's why we have assets there. But it's changing because you have the Middle Eastern operatives, right? They are at work, Pastor Paul, in all these different nations. And right now, what they're doing is sowing discord,
Mm,
propaganda
mm.
by way. They're sowing propaganda and discord in all these different places, and it's working. It's working. So America, as far as America is concerned, we're so divided. We're not doing anything. I'm just telling you right now, we're not doing anything. We can't even defend Benjamin Netanyahu. And I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
his clock has begun, and it's not looking good. I'll put it that way. Um, but we have tied ourselves up so much we can't do anything. We're getting sabotaged internally, right? Through
Are we?
indecision in policy,
So
right? It's costing lives.
Are we spread too thin with everything going on?
Well, we're costing lives because things are stalled in Washington. It's
Okay.
costing soldiers' lives, our soldiers' lives, because they can't come to decisions. It's a soft spot for anybody who's been a combat operative, but they're just costing lives because it's sheer foolishness at the you know at the head of government, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Venezuela will eventually become another type of hub. And because it's so close to us, it is opportune territory, right? To position launchers, to position certain,
Missiles.
forward sub bases and things of that nature. Putin has already got multiple contacts, establishments in that area, and he's moving up north from there, closer to us. So
Cuba? Is he moving to
yeah,
Cuba?
he's already there. He's already
He's already
Putin
there.
he's been in Cuba since the 80s. He's been there for a long time. Believe me, he's been there for a long time, and he's not going to leave. See, in contrary to the news, Putin is not losing to the Ukraine. The Ukraine is in trouble. They've been in trouble for a long time. Everybody should look at what's happening right now. Every single article that ever came out against Putin was a big lie. It
Yeah.
was a big lie. It never
Wow.
came to fruition. And where we are right now will tell the truth. All the rest of that stuff people are talking about is mainly propaganda, right?
Mm.
Unless they have an internal contact, unless they have counterparts that they work with, how are they going to know? They're just taking propaganda and perpetuating the same stuff that causes everybody else to somehow hate the Russians or to hate, the Ukrainians. The truth is that we've invested in Zelensky, not the Ukraine. Okay, we've invested in a person,
Yeah.
not a country, and that was a mistake.
Yep.
But in order to save face, they have to continue to, put out that propaganda that the Ukraine is worth it and that democracy depends on it. No, it does not. They messed up on that one, and that is quite clear. All people have to do is stop and take a look at what's happening right now. And Poland, that story is it is well, it's a lot of propaganda out there. I can't say too much. There's a lot of propaganda out
Oh,
there,
wait.
and it's going to
Did you say
cost a lot of
you said
lives.
Poland?
Yeah, I was about to say something about Poland,
Yeah,
but I
go ahead because
probably might want to leave that one alone.
no, because Poland. Wait a minute, Mike. Because I talked about it earlier tonight. I had a report that said Poland is sending troops to the Finland border. Is that going on?
Well, that is, yeah, that
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite trust all the reasoning. I would encourage people to just watch
Okay.
and see what the outcome is. That will tell you the truth about the situation, and people will quickly find that in media, propaganda rules the day. They do this to
Yeah, that's
support
true.
policy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because if people don't support policy, they'll protest, cause a stink. They'll start breaking down other, components of the American system, and then we won't quite. Plus, one of the leaders of most of this propaganda has passed on his kingdom to somebody else, and so a brand new rule is coming in. Uh, Everything will escalate. It's going to be quick. It's going to be fast. It's going to be high tech, and well, I hope people are ready.
So in other words, Mike, okay, we've got a situation here where we have Russia has invaded Ukraine. That war's going almost to 2 years now. Actually, he's been there since 2014.
Hmm.
He's been sitting in Syria also since 2014, helping the
Yes.
Iranians. Okay. Hamas has attacked Israel.
Hmm.
Ukraine is under siege as well. Venezuela may have just started the process, which is a Russian regime, Nicolas Maduro, who destroyed
Hmm.
Venezuela, by the way, after Hugo Chavez already ruined it.
Yep.
Okay. And now Poland is worried that Russia, Poland, you can't blame Poland for being nervous about Russia. How many times have they invaded them? You got Turkey. Turkey saying that they hate Israel, basically calling Netanyahu the butcher of Gaza. I mean,
Turkey's heading up 2 million. Turkey's heading up a pretty large army, and it could be going right against Israel,
talk about it.
with or
Talk about
without
it.
anybody's approval.
Talk about
Right?
it. Talk about it.
Iranian forces right now, they have a little over 1.5 million at their disposal. These proxy
Iran?
fascists,
Iran?
Iran, yeah, Iran is
Whoa.
pretty powerful. Iran can
Okay.
overwhelm, if they wanted to, in all honesty, they could overwhelm the Middle East right now, right? With
Wow.
missile bombardments, and nobody can do anything about it. There is no defense net in the world that can intercept what Iran has. These guys make large scale missiles multiple times throughout the day in multiple parts of Iran. They've been doing this for years underneath the ground, right? So
Okay.
that's why nobody goes there. Everybody ought to think, out of all the rhetoric that's been said, why is it that people always end up making some sort of deal with Iran? Why not
Yeah.
just go in
Why
there
not
and
just
do
smack
them
them?
like we did everybody else?
Right, because we
Because
can,
nobody
apparently.
is going in there. Nobody is going
Okay.
in there.
Okay.
And the whole world knows it, but the people may not know that, but the whole world knows this. So, people can either continue to fall for propaganda, or they can take a look, see what's going on, because right now the situation, the end result of every situation is the truth of that situation. It really is. Um, it's kind of like a young person says, "Oh yes, I found this lady and I'm going to marry him," but they don't get married, right? Well, the truth was he was daydreaming, because the outcome of his life is exactly, that's what really transpired, not the imaginative part. With Iran, nobody has gone into Iran to overpower anybody in Iran and succeeded. Everybody has lost. The USA tried it by proxies. Many times we lost. Russia tried it. They lost. Saddam Hussein tried it. They lost. Everybody tried it. They lost, right? Israel is constantly trying it. They lost.
Yeah.
And so nobody's going to mess with Iran. They have at their disposal more troops than the Middle East can handle right now, right?
Yeah,
Right
they
now they
do. They
do.
do.
That's why they're so
Wow.
arrogant. That's why they're so arrogant and
Yeah.
confident.
It's why
They have the
nobody
technology to back it up
and
too.
everybody says, why don't we take them on? Why don't somebody take them on? It's because you're saying they have a high technology capability. They have 1.5 million troops. They're a lot more stronger than anybody wants to admit. And you notice nobody ever takes them on because they're scared. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And Russia and Iran are one and the same. In fact, some of the land well above Iran, right? There's another 2 million troops up there that belong to Iran, not Russia, just so everybody knows. And
Wow.
they are hardened. These guys are hardened. They're trained. They're from the age of 6. They're raised to be soldiers. So nobody wants to tangle with them. Nobody does. But at some point, they will be unleashed.
Mike, let's talk also about the 8 hostages that just barely got released. It makes 100 hostages have been released from Hamas to Israel. That little 10-year-old, little 10-month-old baby that everybody was saying give that up. They finally admitted it was dead. Is it going to get difficult now the next week for Hamas to keep giving 10 hostages away? Are they
Yeah,
running
because
out?
they
Are they running out of
do you
people?
really do you really think they still have all the hostages?
No,
I
I
mean, they
don't.
kill people without ruthlessly. I know
Right,
people ignore things, right? But you're
right.
looking at certain types of hostility and on
So are they
you know
are they
the whole
going to
place.
start
So,
making excuses why they can't give it up? Let's start blowing
no,
blaming
they're stalling.
Israel.
They're stalling on purpose. This hostage release is a stall,
Yeah.
right? I made a comment a little while ago. I can't do it again, unfortunately, right? But this is stalling to get other elements in place to carry out
I think
something.
you mentioned it on the webinar, okay? And so we can't say it here, but yes, they're stalling.
They which is why, Benjamin needs prayers.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, he needs prayers, and the clock is ticking.
Okay, you
Um,
mentioned Benjamin needing prayers. Okay, we have got information that Spain and Belgium rebuked. They came over there and then they rebuked the guy, and they went after him. Said there's new Middle East leadership needs to be instated or installed. What's your thoughts
that's,
on Spain and Belgium on this?
that's a declaration.
Okay.
Now, if somebody says, if some foreigner were to come here and say, well, America needs a new president, right? And they were, what do you think that
That's
is? Yeah,
not
I mean,
good.
you know
That's
what
not.
that is.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what
an
that is.
insult
And
for
so
sure.
that's the sentiment of the entire world right now, right? So
Wow.
that word assassination is going to become it will likely, I hate to say this, but based on the arrogancy of, there's a difference of opinion where people should be more cautious right now than at any other time, right? This pride element issue needs to go out the window. It's going to cost a lot, and everything will unravel at that point. That word,
Wow.
that A word, is going to become a reality. I hate to say it, but everything is pointing towards that becoming a reality because they refuse to acknowledge that, they live in a time like that. People have lost their minds. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not. It's a lot of betrayal happening right now in the Holy Land too. A lot of
Yeah, you're
betrayal,
right. I know
Pastor
you're right.
Paul.
I know you're right. Okay, can I ask you a question? What's the impact of the death of Henry Kissinger, if any? Would you say?
Well, you know that he held things back. You could say he was the top of the pressure cooker, right? Because he was older
Yeah.
and he believed in, even though he did some very corrupt things, right? There's a reason he was so successful at it. He believed in taking his time to ensure all sides of everything before he went forward with his plans. Let's go ahead and face it. No one had the ability, it seemed, to stop him, right? No one.
Nobody could.
He
No.
did whatever he did with little to no opposition. They hardly understood what he was doing until it was accomplished. But now that entire leadership role is going into younger, or let's just say not younger, but faster hands. Somebody who doesn't operate by taking their time and methodically checking everything out. So, which means you're going to have a forceful type of regime take its place, which means everything he had planned, say, for the next 50 years will happen in the next 5 years,
Oh,
right?
whoa!
Um,
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
yeah,
Seriously?
yeah,
Seriously?
oh yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you know, he
yep,
he told Barack Obama when Obama became president. I think Obama became president in 2008. Maybe around 2010, he said, "It's time for you to begin the new world order." So, I mean, he was pushing for that then.
yep.
So,
He was
uh,
behind. Well, who do you think was behind Reagan?
Kissinger,
I just hate to
Kissinger,
mess up. I hate
Kissinger.
to mess up history. I
Well,
do. I
yeah.
hate
I
to
mean,
mess up
I know
history,
you don't
right?
want to mess up, but he was the Secretary of State for President Richard Nixon. He
Yeah.
pressured Carter. He was definitely a key component for Reagan, which Trump had the exact same doctrine as Reagan. So this guy has basically been hanging around for 50 years since he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973. I mean, he's been
He was a
shaping world views, right?
he was a corporate controller, right? And we all know that lobbyists, they're the ones that influence law writers to write specific laws that give them benefits and whatever they want to do for their corporations. And Kissinger, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was over top of all of that. So whatever he declared happened. But now that's passed down to people who have no patience. We live in a time where people are hot-headed, and a
Mm,
very hot-headed,
yes.
some hot-headed individuals will be taking his place, and they're not going to ask anybody anything. That's not what they're doing. So everybody ought to get ready for that rule of force to actually come in with with a vengeance. I mean, to really, there'll be no negotiation this time. In many things, there will be, people are going to notice a coldness, and also celebration of those who do morally corrupt things by way of policy to establish their corrupt way among society, which means society will change in a way that is for a moral person is absolutely disgusting, but it's going to change that way very fast, right? And nothing will halt it, right? Because all the people who would actually speak against or organize against immorality, they're gone. They're gone.
Wow.
They're gone. So they're just not here anymore. Most of the people who would fight, and as far as Christianity, openly fight for Christianity, they're gone. Most of the people who were outspoken in in Washington for Christianity, as far as it being moral, as because the abominations that were that God spoke about in the beginning still exist right now. There's still abominations, but you have a lot of people who have altered their belief of the Bible, period. And they throw out it's almost they're worshiping some other God now, but they're still utilizing the Bible. And so they're not going to fight for the moral fabric of spiritual things. They're not. They're going to continually alter the gospel. It's a hybrid gospel already, right? Where Christ is not talked about half the time
Right.
in things. So yeah, those things will escalate big time.
Wow. Mike, also, we've had questions coming in from us, and I want you to know that the white lung, this apparently this thing is exploding out of China. What's weird is it's November before an election year here in America. Same thing happened, last time with COVID, and you were the guy who broke the story. I mean, really, nobody even had a clue that there was a problem in China when you told us millions of people will die in China by March of 2020. So now we have this white lung infection or white lung pneumonia. Do you have any information on this?
Well, it makes people nervous, right? Because
Right.
I believe it's among children, and
Right.
but what we have to remember is something. All of a sudden, this stuff is breaking out after uh, Z, right, has gone all over the place.
What has?
Correct,
Oh,
right?
yeah, okay.
President
Yeah,
Chi,
yeah.
and so he's gone all over the place, which means, well, let's go ahead and face it. We live in a place where there are no borders on commerce and no
Right,
borders
right.
on people's travels, right? It was actually a problem, Pastor Paul, in April. They had issues with that, isolated issues with that, and I hear again, some of the folks in our Navy raised that issue, and they were ignored again, right? So here you have, because if it spreads, it could easily mutate. It really could. So we have more things breaking out in China. Again, we live in a world where people travel, right? There's no travel ban or anything else, but now China's forced to go ahead and start to put everything back again. So here we are. Here we are, Pascal. Could it spread? Is it in the USA? We have, it's it will likely end up in everywhere. It will likely end up everywhere. And that's because of our travel. That's also because of people are not willing to take extra precautions not to spread anything, right? They're not going
Right.
to do that unless they are Asian. Asian people are going to wear a mask. Those who are indoctrinated into a world where they say, well, I'm not going to wear a mask, even, if I have chicken pox or something, I'm not going to wear a mask or something like that, because people are tired of that, right? And if you
Right.
don't believe you have something, if you don't believe you can spread something, why would you put on a mask anyway? And so that mentality is around, and naturally, so you're going to have the spreading of things where people are not taking, all precautions against it, because we politicized, our government did it. We politicized the mask, right?
We
Well,
did.
part of the
We
government did it.
really
We
did.
politicized it.
Yep.
We made a big stink out of something that
So
it shouldn't have gone that way.
are you worried about the white lung at all?
I am worried about it affecting children over here in the USA. Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, I sure am. I sure am.
And I'm
Because
not saying,
what can keep it in China?
well, I'm not saying that it originated in China. There's no question. I'm not saying it's a bioweapon. I'm not saying it is the same thing we had in COVID. I mean, it's odd that it happens in November, the year before an election. The same thing had happened.
Well, yeah,
I mean, you can't help but ask
yeah,
questions, but I'm not saying that it is. But should we keep a close eye on this thing, real close?
yeah, yeah. I would. And if you have children, really, if you have children, this year specifically, this year, really keep a close eye on your kids, right? Because a lot of these pediatricians and some of these other doctors are taking too many shortcuts,
Yeah.
misdiagnosing children, and taking this linear advice from higher ups that may not handle your child's case on an individual level. Prayer is necessary. I hope that everybody believes in that for their children, because without that, nothing will work. I'm convinced, though, Pastor Paul, if a parent prays for their child, and let's say they make a wrong decision in something,
Okay.
it's not going to matter if that parent is praying for that child. They will ultimately, God can take anything meant for evil and turn it into good for whatever that person prayed for.
Right.
So it's really based on intent, because if your intent is full of selflessness, not selfishness, but love and selflessness, then the Lord will bless whatever you're trying to do, which means, I know I was in a restaurant one time. Everybody was food poisoned. I was not, but I was also the only one who sat there like an idiot and prayed over my food.
No, you're not an idiot for praying over your food.
Yeah.
But you might have looked like one to the rest of the group.
I did, and everybody got sick but me. Isn't that funny? Things like that do happen. If we're bold enough to keep God's standards without embarrassment, without hesitation, then the Lord is just to fulfill His word in our lives.
I mean, that's what I like about you, Mike, is you always fall back to the Word of God. And you always say, hey, look, I'm just going to follow the principles of the Bible. And then it works. You always say it. Yeah, I love that. You always say, and it works. And then when other people don't understand it, well, I can't help them. What do you want me to do? I'm just going to go ahead and stand on the Word. I love that about you, Mike. I really do. Mike, I got another question. It's coming to me from Pastor Carl. He says, ask Mike, will this powerful CME, this cannibal CME that's supposed to hit tomorrow around noon or so, will it interrupt plane travel? He wants to know.
Well, it depends. It depends. When they're saying it's gobbling up all the other radiation that's coming to Earth, because all that material is radiation, right? Plasma radiation, all that stuff. It depends on how much it actually consumes. If in this phenomenon, which by the way is a simulation, so they give little pet names of simulations like this. So if it consumes a lot of material, because it could be of one size right now, right? Couple more hours past ball, it could double in size based upon what it consumes. And so that's indeterminate, and that's why they said this could cause some issues. It is not something you predict. You can't predict how it's going to or what magnitude it's going to be when it hits, because it could actually start absorbing more than anybody thought was out there, right? That's why they give it the name anyway. So it could affect, radios. It could affect aircraft. If we have, for some reason, like I know within the next 2 days, a pulse will be coming through. If somehow they get intertwined, they're going to start to lower altitude. Aircraft are going to have to lower altitude because of increased radiation at higher altitudes, right? And we have enough pilots who are at the cumulative level of radiation that they can't fly anymore. We have enough of that going on. And many people don't even know that when you fly, you're exposed to radiation. You can only be exposed to so much before you lose your flight status, right? And so that increase in radiation is certainly could cause some issues. It certainly could, but it's not something somebody can predict, right? Maybe it won't absorb anything else. Maybe it will absorb twice as much. You just don't know. It's something we're going to have to see the outcome of, keep it in our minds that this happens when this phenomenon takes place, and understand that we have bigger events coming. So it'll be a good gauge the next time we face something like that.
Amen. Mike, I hate to keep throwing you with all this bombardment of questions, but I've got so many. Heidi
go ahead. You're good.
Heidi went on Patreon and asked people, if you got questions for Mike, let us know. Oh, man, we got bombarded. So I'm going to give you a few of them. Thank you, Mike, for that. Henry Kissinger was not the guy in the coffin in your dream. I already know that, but can you
Right.
talk about that a little bit? Because there's no rioting over him, and he's not the guy, right?
No, no, he's not. And this one will be. Uh, I can't tell you. I'm not going to see who's in the coffin, right? It's one of those things. Like if I say I named it right now, right?
Okay.
What would happen is if I named the person in the coffin, everybody would start looking at this individual, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who hears this start looking at
Yeah.
the individual,
Yeah.
nitpicking at the individual, this, that, and the other, and potentially more stories could branch off from this. But here's the deal: when I have a dream like that, right? Even though it's odd or something like that, even within me, I'm cautious with those dreams, right? Some, when it comes to death or something I never saw before, I'm very hesitant
Of
in giving
course.
all the details because, God forbid, everybody's this reached the wrong people and it hurts them or
Right.
affects them in the wrong way, and then something else happens. So it's not meant for that. I think that dream is meant, and normally the Lord will give me things for me because I'm never surprised by what happens in the world, because it just so happens that in many occasions I'm right in the middle of things that the average person would rather not be in the middle of, and God has always equipped me uh, with whatever I'm going to be involved with. In this case, this unexpected death, this incident is going to begin to alter the fabric of the republic, democracy, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It's going to change. And that will be the marker of that change, because I know when this happens, I have to prepare for a few things immediately. So um, it will take place. It will mark the change of America, period. Right?
Amen.
Even worse than the stone steps. It will. And it's almost like one of those marker in time where nothing will go back now. Yeah, nothing will relax after this. Right? Which means the ball, like somebody says, the ball game has started. Let's play. That's what it's like that. So
How do you feel about
it's
the?
unexpected. It's going to be unexpected. It'll be. I personally think a lot of people are going to have mixed feelings over it, but I do believe it's gonna start shaking the spirit of people when the statements come out after that, right? Because normally, if a person passes, often dirt comes up behind a person's passing, right? Because
Right.
everybody wants to explain why the person passed, what was involved in this. Is Yeah, it'll be. It's going to cause some problems, but it will be a marker for
Mike, we
change.
had this Osprey again, another Osprey plane or vehicle crash. I think we lost one military personnel. I hope that was only one. Just off the coast of Japan. This man, it seems like these things keep going down a lot. Is there an issue here?
That design of the V-22, right? It
Yeah.
is I like that aircraft. I do.
Have you
It's
ever flown
highly
in one of those?
versatile.
Because I know you
Oh yeah,
travel. Yeah.
it's highly versatile.
Okay.
It's actually theoretically it's not supposed to do what it's supposed to do, right? But it is a very versatile aircraft, very vital aircraft.
So you
It
think
has
is it more? I hate to say this, Operation Air, maybe younger guys getting started, that maybe crash these things.
Well, based on investigations, I'll tell you, because when you go to, you have to transition that type of vertical lift aircraft. You have to get used to the transition mechanisms in there mechanically, right? So you really, when you're doing maintenance on these things, you really cannot make a mistake. And I
Okay.
think that it's low tolerance for mechanical errors, right? Is one of the major problems. An operator, right? Even if they wanted to do certain things, that aircraft will not let that person do it. But mechanical errors or tolerances, right? Because they're so low, they're incredibly low. Uh, when you're dealing with those VTOL aircraft, you can't afford to make a mistake in transition. You can't have mechanical errors, disruptions in fuel flow, hydraulics, and things like that. I mean, it has redundant systems, but there are many times when, like when it first came out, it was oh my goodness, this thing had a long list of things that was wrong with it. Most people rejected it. It stayed, in the background for a long time, but its necessity um, of that type aircraft and the change in combat dynamics actually brought it forward, right? So it's one of those things, Pastor Paul. Any aircraft, any aircraft, any helicopter, right? Helicopters go down too. They do. They're
Yeah,
just not
yeah,
people. What people don't do is when a helicopter goes down, they don't advertise it like one of those aircraft, right? They don't jump to that story because it's just a helicopter, right? But
yeah,
these vertical lift aircraft, of course, are going to jump to it because it's controversial. It is, something that has been plagued with issues from the beginning. But all aircraft are dangerous. All of them are, right? I mean, it's essentially a controlled explosive device that flies, if you think about it. So
yeah.
how can it not be dangerous?
Right.
Um, you know,
Okay, no more than any other one is what I'm hearing you say. So it's, even though their numbers might be bad, it's really not no more than any other one. Let me ask you this question. Iceland volcano. Man, we've been holding our breath, Mike, on this one. We've been holding our breath. Is this thing going to blow?
well, the land swells are still happening, right?
Yeah.
Still going on. The magma movement is causing, actually, there's an actual voltage fluctuation now because that moving magma has caused uh, power surges to start to take place, which means
I didn't
some of
know
that
that.
magma is moving pretty quick in certain places now.
Okay.
So Iceland is a place that was always going to blow, right? It
Mm,
has to have some type of relief, whether
yeah.
it be by the volcano itself or through some other mechanism. There's going to have to be a relief of that top layer magma chamber, right? Now, keep in mind, it should be mapped somewhere, but Iceland is not a normal volcano, not a normal situation. There are multiple uh, magma chambers lined up below this thing, right? Like different floors, like a big high rise full of floors, but each floor has magma. So there are multiple chambers there. And at some point, it's going to find its way out. And as the earth continues to heat on the inside, and this earth is heating, if people can ignore that all day, they're going to have to deal with it. But it's heating. The magma is quite active, right? And all the earthquakes are coming back again. Iceland, when it goes past ball, it is connected to a very vital point in the crust of the earth itself, as far as tectonic movements, and it will often affect Alaska. If it goes, it's going to affect Alaska. Here's the problem with that, though. Alaska will affect California. It will affect the Coast Plate. It'll go all the way over as far as the
Air
USA goes.
travel.
It'll go all
Are
the
you
way over to Florida. It'll go
what?
up into New York.
Florida?
So
No. Okay. Are
yeah,
you?
it'll set off we're talking about a lot of things set off. If it affects Alaska, right?
Okay.
So, but right now, the more it holds back, the more it's being held back, the more magma is building up, right? The higher the land swells, if we get those high land swells, that will actually be a good sign, right? Because we'll have some relief. If we don't get that past ball, that magma is going somewhere and it's building up somewhere. The question is, where is it going to blow at?
Okay.
And how deeply will it affect the crust of the earth?
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Mike, I got a question here that I had a guy call me earlier today named David G out there. He said, Paul, would you please ask Mike this question? And I told him I would ask you this, the first question, and I forgot. I wrote it down on another piece of paper, and then when I put my agenda together, I forgot. So I'm going to ask you now, okay? The U.S. dollar currency is really hurting. It seems to be
Right.
dropping every day. He asked the question. He said, could you please ask Mike, if the U.S. dollar is slowly dying, what other currency should people maybe consider investing in?
Well, here's the issue with that.
Okay.
If you take a look at the U.S. dollar, right, you do see a steady, I guess you could say a constant drip or trickle of it, right, which basically is rebounded by American policy dealing with foreign assets,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Now we have the CDBC. We have a very different system coming in, right?
Yes, we do.
The the main point, here's what a lot of people don't understand, this one of the main, the central hub of that system is not absent America. Okay, we do hold a critical component in that system. So having said that, as far as investments are concerned, number one, everything will be going digital. That's number one.
Okay,
So
that's big. That's big.
when people do investments or something like that, right? Unfortunately, now this is in the investment department. The only true safe way to have some sort of exchangeable thing that you can instantly, convert to digital currency or something like that would be you have to have physical, hard, metallic assets, gold, silver, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, while it operates like that, right? That's all you can do. You can't,
Gold.
if you go
So
into a different dollar,
gold or
like,
silver is a
yeah,
biblical
yeah.
currency that has lasted forever. So at the
While
end,
it's That's right. While mankind's kingdoms are still operating, but
yeah,
you know, because sooner or later, all that will be irrelevant.
that's right. That's
But
right.
while it's operating, while you have to continue to use resources from manufactured things and this, that, and the other, make sure you have some sort of exchangeable asset with you, because everything is going digital. And so what that means is they're going to force everybody say you saved up $1 million of paper money, right? Nobody cares. And then one day when your bank is digital, they're going to say, turn in your money, right?
Right.
Just go ahead and deposit your money and you'll have it digitally, right?
Right.
You're not going to be able to use that anywhere else. Once a currency goes dead, it's going to be dead. But it's only that tangible dollar that will be dead. Your digital dollar is going to be alive. And so what they're doing is transitioning everything. They're also causing a purposed type of lowering of how many physical assets are out there as far as money, change, things like that, right? Because they're about to do one of those reclaim processes. Um, that's going to make all metals go through the roof for a little bit, just for a
Yeah.
little bit,
Temporarily.
when they start the reclaim thing. But now I'm going to tell everybody something. While the kingdoms are utilizing money, it's fine to do that, but always keep in mind they already have a plan to take everything back. Just so
Yes.
you guys know that.
Yes.
Okay. So that means nobody on earth can hide metals from when they, launch their little operation. They know exactly where everything is, but they know where everything is.
Yes.
They can peer into the earth from miles and find any type
You
metal-based
can't hide
anything.
it. You're
So
saying there's no way to hide it.
no, you cannot hide it. So that what that means is, while the economies are based the way they are, do what is responsible for your families, right? But always keep in mind, one day all of that will change. All of it will. I believe it in the Bible, that's going to be the time when people cast their gold and silver in the streets, which
Yes.
means all your precious things are not going to be able to help you in that time,
Yes.
right? Things are going to be so diverse. But when so long as these kingdoms continue to go like they go, be responsible for your
So in
families.
other words,
Is what I'm
we're to
saying.
occupy till he comes. Until then, but when there's a certain time when it don't matter, okay? It
That's
don't
right.
matter. But right now, we're not there yet, but right
That's right.
now, do what you got to do to
That's right.
maintain your finances. Okay, I hope that
Ooh,
helps.
I got one more piece of advice
All
dealing
right,
with money.
please share it with
One
us.
more,
Please.
one more for everybody out there. If money can change your attitude, it is stronger than God in your life, and that should never be. Money should
Amen.
never have the power, whether you have it or not, to change your attitude.
Amen.
It should never have that power. So it's almost like a gauge in your car that says you have a lot of fuel or no fuel, right? If it changes your attitude, that means it is stronger than God in your life at that
Amen.
moment. And then work on a different tactic in life where nothing is stronger than the Most High in your life.
Amen.
Yeah,
Because, folks, the Bible says if you gain the whole world and lose your soul, what would you give in exchange? And
that's
that's
right.
what you're saying, Mike, is look, Your faith has to be in Jesus Christ. Ultimately, 100% maximum is Christ. And if you're putting
That's right.
something, anything else ahead of him, you're making a major mistake, because that's going to fail. Everything, anything, anybody, any finance, any precious metal, anything is going to fail when it
That's
comes
right.
to comparing to Christ. Mike,
That's
this has
right.
been amazing. I have one last question for you. 2024, do you see Trump? I had people ask me this all the time. I keep walking away from it.
Well,
You see him winning it, or who's going to win 2024,
Pastor,
Mike?
look.
Okay,
I'll say this: these kingdoms are quite ruthless, right?
right.
Nobody's going to be in office they don't want, in truth. Period.
Okay,
There's no way around it, right? They portray an illusion of freedom to a certain extent, but everybody who's been in office, they have put there, and they if they don't want somebody in office,
it
there's
ain't going
so
to
many
happen.
people out there. There's so many people out there in the world who are easy to reach, and they're very desperate, right? They will do anything for money,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Canada, Canada's finally, for the first time, starting to identify this issue that there are too many operatives being paid to take people out in Canada, of all places, and they're finally, and we're going to have to address it next. We just haven't had any recent assassination attempts,
Not
but what's
really.
going to happen what happens when there is a successful assassination in us and our ally? You know, and I know they're going to pull back. People are going to demand you pull back the covers on everything, right? Just if there's ever a successful assassination in America or Israel, I'm telling you right now, there are people who will demand everything be pulled back, which means look for hackers, look for everything else.
Yeah,
They're going to
yeah.
force, they're going to clamp down on security on everything. Look for something far worse than the Patriot Act to ever be enacted to take away every drop of freedom, and then we'll be forced to be digitized for security purposes. It'll turn into a very militant place for a
Sounds like
time
the mark of the
because,
beast. Sounds like
yep,
the
that's
beast
right.
kingdom.
And it will be, we know that the beast kingdom is going to be by way of force, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
by way of force. But we also know that those written in the book of life will not take the mark. They won't worship the beast or worship the dragon,
Amen.
right?
Should people
So,
get the ticket tomorrow night, Mike? I mean, your presentation alone. Should they get the ticket tomorrow night, 6 o'clock? It's going to go live. Well,
yeah, I think they should. I really hope that they pick up from this one, Pastor Paul, because I'll tell you, we're going to entertain a time when we're right there at the moment where people are going to go beyond. We're going to go beyond hearing somebody talk about things and actually dealing with it,
amen.
right?
Amen.
And when you hear something, when you hear certain things, at least it's not going to give you a heart attack when it takes place. You'll
Amen.
have some sort of inclination of what to do when that situation comes around like that, right? So,
Amen.
and
Amen.
eventually, for the whole body of Christ, we'll be well informed. Eventually, we will. We'll be well
Thank you for
informed.
what you've been doing in helping us in this area, certainly to inform the believers and to the unbelievers, because we reach out, as you know, Mike, we reach out all the time to the unbelievers to
Yeah.
help bring them into Christ. And boy, it's time people need to get in. And so
Oh,
I want to thank you. Well, you did a great job on the Invasion America presentation. I told people, if you want to know what's going on, you dropped. I used this saying that you dropped the mic. Okay, Mike dropped the mic. You need to go watch and see what he said. So thank you for that, Mike. It's really important. I appreciate it.
well, Pastor Paul, it's always an honor. God bless you, brother.
The honor is mine, believe me. God bless, brother.
All right.
Mike from the world, folks.